Hello, Leonardo Müller-Rodriguez, to
Good
warmest
evening.
welcome to the Serpent's Path conversations. So
Hello,
lovely,
Claudia.
lovely, lovely to have you.
Great. I was trying to
Um,
impersonate a serpent when you mentioned that.
yes. So Leo is and coming from the musical family, and himself being a musician, and also PhD student studying a neuroscience in music therapy or in sleep in particular, right?
Yes, it's the intersection between those three: neuroscience, music therapy, and sleep.
There you go. Okay, thank you for clarifying. And how many languages do you speak, Leonardo?
I speak four languages, which are Spanish, English, French, and I learned Italian at school because it's very similar to French
To French.
and
The same
Spanish.
Latin group of languages, very lucky,
Exactly.
right? As soon as you know one,
Yes, it's very similar to the other ones. Yeah. But that's it.
lucky.
I think I've capped all the languages that I can. There's no other.
Never
What
say
other?
never.
Never say never. Yeah. Yeah. No, but there's nothing that's similar, right? I don't know if Romanian is similar to that. I've got no clue actually.
Well, it's funny enough, I was just visiting my friends in Romania, and uh, their language from the distance sounds as like Brazilian or Italian.
Right.
So it's there is a huge influences from Latin in the Romanian language. So
I
maybe
had
that's the
heard that,
next
but yeah, I wasn't sure. So good to hear that. Actually, yeah, then Portuguese is another one that could.
Portuguese.
Yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
great
Many languages. Um,
to learn. I
okay,
don't know Portuguese, but
Okay,
anyway.
that's all the labels I just put out there. But if you could describe yourself or introduce yourself the way you would like to introduce yourself, what would you say?
I would say I'm a musician, composer, producer, very interested in understanding how the mind works. And
Hmm.
consequently, if you want to understand how the mind works, you have to understand how the mind works in relation to the environment. So
Hmm.
um, there's that's understanding, neuroscience, and then how neuroscience fits with the physical environment. That's my interest, but also how the mind itself works. And I love
Yeah.
making music.
And you love making music. You've got your
Yeah.
own brand. You've got quite a few recordings there in your
Yes.
pocket from
Yes.
very different fields. I was listening to this morning, even. I was listening to the psychosomatic synergies, was it?
Yes. It's
Symbiosis.
like
Symbiosis.
symbiosis. Yeah.
Symbiosis, and that was very interesting.
Oh.
Fusions of
Yes.
different sounds.
Yeah. What I'd love to hear what you think about that. Yeah. It was a sort of meditation album I put together, and but meditation in terms of what I see, because I had a bit of karate experience, 3 years, which I thought were very important for the discipline and
Yeah.
understanding the mind and meditation. I thought they were very interesting,
Mhm.
very interesting practice. And the very first track is called Autokatastrophe,
Yes,
which
exactly.
is
This is the one I was listening to, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting combination because it goes kind of like into this catastrophic sort of drama moment, and then it changes."
yes.
And I'm like, "Oh, my mind was like, what is going on there?"
I mean, I have an explanation for that, but what did you see in that?
I've got quite vivid, quite, my mind goes to places. So I was trying to concentrate with that, and I actually couldn't concentrate with that sound. But I was wondering if it's because I was trying to hear something what I wanted to hear, or is that because it was so dramatic at some stages and
Mhm.
changing frequently that I wasn't able to tune in fully into the sequence.
Yeah, well, the it was maybe more of an artistic interpretation
Hmm.
I don't know, because you're maybe more placed for understanding meditation with your Reiki practice. Maybe we can say that,
Mm.
but
Not necessarily, but I understand which way you're going. Yes.
yeah. So really that aspect was relating to that karate practice, which
Mhm.
you do katas. Katas is
Mhm.
in karate, maybe it's a Japanese word for a sequence of movements that
Mhm.
are you learn them and they're meditative as well. It's like a moving meditation. So there was a lot of wordplay there. Kata is also in catastrophe. So
Yeah,
the idea is when you're doing these movements, usually you do put a lot of energy in them. Like sometimes you're shouting, the key is
absolutely.
called, and
Yeah.
so you at the end of a certain movement, you know, Wah! as intensely as you can normally, which wasn't an example here, and you would go like that, and you're doing these sort of martial arts movements, which are not necessarily great for fighting. It's just more of the artistic part, I think, and that's what I was thinking when doing that, when putting that dramatic aspect.
Interesting.
Um,
It
yeah,
just reminded me when you said about this, making that sounds and movement in the same time. That reminds me a little bit of capoeira, which is
ah,
Brazilian way of, uh, sort of hidden fight technique,
yeah,
right?
yes.
Incorporated into dance with beautiful music in the background, actually.
Mm.
Can So it's great. Okay, can you tell me, because I how the PhD research looks like when you have got this, particular subject that you're trying to, get to know about something, like what is your day-to-day work? I know it's a lot of probably researching some papers and doing that type of stuff, but I know you were doing some. I saw these pictures on your social media with you and I think it was Antimo as well,
Yes.
wearing this funny thingy on the head. So, like, what was that?
So that Antimo thing was a collaboration between the institute where I'm doing my
Hmm.
PhD and I've worked for the last 3 years. It's called the Cambridge Institute for Music Therapy Research, and it's part of Anglia Ruskin University. And they did a collaboration with Yamaha Piano Store in Soho, London,
Mm.
which was about it was a panel discussion and showing the brain activity during piano improvisation.
Hmm.
And I was helping setting up, and I invited Timo to be part that. And they're looking at the brain activity. These sort of looks like a grandma who knit some sort of
Wired hats. Yeah.
yeah, it's a wired hat. It has electrodes, loads of them.
Yeah.
I think that should have 32, and
Hmm.
then there's sort of the ones you see in social media that I've put as pictures, and it looks at your electric activity. So there's different types of those EEGs. They're called
Hmm.
electroencephalogram,
Hmm.
and there are different types. But that one uses water, salted water, that you put on the electrodes, and you put it here, and you get the activity. If it's in the hair, you have to move the hair to make sure that you get the conductivity from
With
inside the
skin.
skull.
Hmm.
Yeah, through the skin. But what's the day to day? So that's not often that I do experiments. Actually, most of the time, my day to day is a lot of reading. Yes, a lot of reading of articles, a lot of summarizing concepts and writing. And then there's a bit of coding also. And so, coding in the sense that for data analysis and then discussions. Those are the main day to day, to be honest.
Hmm.
Discussions with my supervisors, and yeah, once in a while, I so last over the last 3 years, I've participated in a few studies. One was a another PhD student who was doing a neuroscience analysis of drug rehabilitation with music therapy. So we were
Yeah.
going to this community center for rehabilitation, and it was in it was far. I forgot, but I was lucky that the Elizabeth line opened during my time and made it faster to get there. But yeah, we were looking at the music therapy session, and I was helping to put uh, the EEG. This time we were using gel,
Hmm.
so it wasn't with the salted water.
Salt
We were
water.
using a sort of gel that we would
Hmm.
put and make the hair completely, well, with gel. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Interesting.
there's that. Yeah.
So you kind of collect the data and then you feed that data through your whatever system and laptop or whatever systems, and then you kind of process that data to see what came up after this experiment.
Yes, yes, it's mainly about that. It's about capturing data and putting it on a digital form, and then
Mm.
doing some sort of analysis, making sure the theoretical and rational background is solid. So that's so. For instance, the first year of the PhD, I spent mainly reading a lot
Yeah.
of going through the literature,
Hmm.
making sure that I'm answering a good gap
Hmm.
in the literature
Hmm.
regarding sleep music,
Hmm.
and then yeah, a bit of testing of the data collection devices on myself, on friends,
So I
and
guess that being musician helps you to do these studies.
I think my it does because my focus is on creating playlists as well. So that has been part of the research focus of the institutes that I've been part of. There was the first project I joined was called Radio Me, which was we were developing with three universities a radio for people with dementia
Hmm.
that would play their favorite music whenever the system detects with heart rate, like smartwatches, detects
Hmm.
agitation, which is a sort of a symptom in dementia, either verbal aggression, physical aggression, maybe confusion, that kind of the behavior. It's not very well defined, but it
Hmm.
is a symptom that's uh, we want to prevent with music, with favorite music. So creating playlists is something that's important, and I use a software to do that. But being a musician helps with having a deeper intuition in terms of how music works. Right? If you're
Hmm.
not a musician, you mightn't be able to use the system metrics and all that, but sometimes it facilitates my decision making with choosing what music to put for the participant. I
Yes,
think
this is
that's
interesting because I was thinking about it. I was like, do you actually need to have a some sort of professional background, music background, to be able to do this type of studies? But I guess not. It could be
no,
just
you don't.
theoretical. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
the and there are people that I know that don't have. In my institute, most people are music therapists, so
Right.
they're even more qualified than me actually, because they've done a 2 year training to become a music therapist, which requires a specific way of dealing with some patient and how to use the music in a therapeutic way.
Hmm.
So
So
differently to a
like a
musician.
trauma training.
Yes, it is a bit like that, but what's to my knowledge, it's they like to describe themselves. There was a lecture recently at we host lectures at it's called CIMTER for short, Cambridge Institute for Music Therapy Research,
Yes.
CIMTER. The music therapist researcher said that music therapist, it could be applied to just therapists in general, but a professional at playing, just being playful.
Professional playing.
Yeah,
That's very broad, but
yeah, it's very
anyway,
broad.
it
Actually,
could
that
be
one I think.
depending on where you're coming
Yeah,
from.
it could be it could be
Uh,
anywhere. But let's to be more specific. So they don't try to improvisation is a very important aspect in music therapy, and so you might play something, but it doesn't have to be musical in the um, cultural artistic sense what you're playing.
yeah.
It can just be sounds and that you're playing
Hmm.
with someone, and the interaction is the most important aspect.
Hmm.
That's it.
Speaking about that, my next question would be, and that's all taken from your social media and your interviews with other professionals in the fields, the FFR theory, following frequency response.
Ah,
Can you explain a little bit more what that is?
Sure. I'm curious where I mentioned that, but maybe my yeah.
It was
So,
you had the interview with someone, and I found that quite interesting. This theory. So neuroscientific effect when you hear the rhythmic stimulus,
yeah,
your brain frequencies follow that pattern or that rhythm.
exactly.
And you also had
So
this really nice graph there.
yes, I see. I see. It could have been one of the explanation videos I did. Yes. So following frequency response is a neuroscientific concept, which can also be thought as entrainment. Is normally
Hmm.
the way that's talked about in music therapy as well broadly, and it means that your brain mimics the rhythm that it is perceiving. So it synchronizes the brain activity to the rhythm that you're hearing.
It's
So
interesting.
very simply, um, I've got a guitar here, so I can do some. So if you have,
You can
you hear
pretend
that?
you're a bird.
I'm a bird. What?
You can pretend the sounds.
Yes. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So normally, a steady rhythm should. I mean, look at me. I'm moving. I'm already in training, but behaviorally, you can see my head going up and down, and in essence, that's the idea. But that is happening in the brain frequencies as well, and
Interesting.
it's specific to rhythm. And one way is
It's
it's also quite relevant in binaural beats, which does it differently actually. The idea is that you have one tone here playing at a certain frequency and
and the
another
other
one
sound.
here.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
difference between the two frequencies, let's say 404 hertz and 400 hertz, will be 4 hertz that's happening inside the brain.
Wow.
That's it.
That's interesting because
Mm.
I never fully understood how that kind of works, where you've got two different sounds playing and what does that do to the brain actually? What's the response of the brain
Mm.
for in terms of when you're treating it in this way, right? When you're treating it with the different sounds that are in combination, they're creating something new, right? When you play them separately, that's different, and when you play them all together, that's also different.
You do this in your sound healing practice?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question. Moving closer to my field, can you measure emotions in the brain? If so, how?
Great. I see you made your. There's a video like that I did, which
There
is
is,
interesting. Yeah, and I think that's a good
but you didn't
question.
explain there enough, or enough for me to understand. So now I need to hear the full answer now.
Okay, great. Yes, I think there's several versions of that video: the longer version, the cut up version. But in essence, I can answer that here as much as I can. So, um, can you measure emotions in the brain? So, one thing I don't mention in that video is that emotions is in the body as well. So, you can there's
That's it.
interesting. Yeah, there's an interesting, but you can also measure some aspect of emotions in the brain.
That's it.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So,
Because they
and
got there, but they got there somehow. It's not they're just there in one spot. They're all
yeah,
over. So what's I guess it's probably not everybody understands what not everyone understands emotions, right? What the emotions are. What's the not everybody is actually able to name the emotions or feelings, right? So it
yeah,
depends on what you're actually talking about, because emotions is it's kind of quite broad subjects for some people
yeah.
if you're looking at from a non-therapeutic perspective, but from
Mhm.
therapeutic perspective, for maybe for me and for you, that's something different.
Right. I mean, we can use. So I like to think in terms of this neuroscience theory that's called active inference,
Hmm.
which is a theory of how, well, it was initially how the brain works, but then it's been applied to how the body and how any animal works. And um, yeah, it's a very broad theory. And it's, in essence, saying that we are a perception action loop, which is that
Mhm.
we perceive something, and what we perceive we can act on. So, based on that principle, um, we have to limit our understanding of what is relevant to human perception. So, there's, for instance, very simply, the retina can't perceive beyond certain wavelengths of light, right? I think it's 408 nanometers to, I don't know if it's 700 something. And then same for audio, the ears can only perceive between 20 and 20,000 hertz. So we have a certain aspect, certain perceptual limits to,
Mhm.
and I want to, my understanding, and I think that's a neuroscientific understanding, is that emotions are limited to what we can perceive. So we are reacting emotionally to our perceptions. Now, it doesn't mean that we are not being affected by energies that are beyond what we can perceive in those aspects. But a strong aspect of emotions is our perceptual limits, I think.
Mhm.
And one aspect that you mentioned here is, can we ourselves understand our emotional reaction? So I think in that sentence, we are assuming that we are perceiving an emotion already, but we can't describe it. That's how I understand your question. Does that
Mhm.
makes? But is that in line
So
with your question?
yeah, yeah, and then for some we don't always need to do that, right? To understand, because in many aspects, actually, to go through the therapeutic process or healing, it's not to try to figure it out why you feel the way you feel and not to
Mhm.
actually maybe name the emotion.
Okay.
It's just allowed to for it to just be, right? And then if you're in a therapeutic setup, or if you're receiving sound healing, or if you're being in a space where there is a music being played, so when you're tuning in and there is this, I don't know, sadness, or actually, happiness, arises in your body, because it's in your body receives the message, and then you act upon it, right? So you're being triggered in positive or negative way, right? We can, because we have to call it somehow, but you're being kind of, your strings, emotional strings are being pulled somehow, and you're responding to it or reacting upon it in a certain way. So yeah.
Yes. Yes. I think that's a nice point. The fact that emotional relabeling is one term that is used in therapeutic psychoneuroscience aspects, which is just using words to describe how you feel. But you're saying it's not necessary, and there are studies also showing that you can, I don't know the exact wording, but I'm going to say you can get over emotions or build emotional
Hmm.
resilience through
Well, release
meditation,
emotional charge. Hmm.
release emotional charge through meditation. And
Hmm.
meditation for me, as I mentioned earlier, is quite a broad thing. It's just about
Absolutely.
uh, putting, it's about guiding your attention consciously. I think I see it like that.
Hmm.
Guiding your attention consciously, either to
Hmm.
one thing or
It's
broadening it.
one of the definitions of meditation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's allowing for whatever is happening, but not engaging with it, because you can't
Mm,
stop thinking, you can't stop thoughts. They always gonna be there, but it's your choice to either engage with it or not engage. Just observe, being
mhm.
kind of absent observer of your mind's work, or you know actions.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
And that's where music and sound healing can actually help put yourself in this
Hmm.
meditative state.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
to slow down the mind, so the body also slow down, slows down, and then you kind of put yourself in the solitude time moment where you've got enough space to actually notice, because it's about noticing, right? It's about
Yeah.
noticing.
Mhm.
um Thank you. What else I've got here for you? Oh, we answered that. I just found this very nice, interesting phrase yesterday, that when your heart speaks, your brain listens, and our heart has their own set of neurons, which, some people don't believe that, but actually heart's got a set of neurons, and in the science, um, which is forming what scientists says, uh, intrinsic cardiac nervous system, heart's nervous system, which is basically heart's brain, right?
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes. So, and the system is influencing how we feel and respond to the world. And it says even more, which I love, and I would like to, remind people about that the heart generates energetic field which is measurably stronger than the brains, which might have helped to synchronize psychological rhythms and emotional regulation. So,
Yes, I've seen very rarely about that electromagnetic field research about the heart and heart
mhm,
coherence. I think is one.
mhm. Interesting. Heart
Um,
coherence, yes. Heart coherence is very very trendy term in meditation as well. Some meditative practitioners use it quite a lot, because when you slow down and you silence your environment and you sit in stillness, and you're only listening to your breath, and with the breath you're regulating your heart and blood pressure, you're kind of putting your heart, and I can see you taking the breath out in now. You're putting your heart into the heart coherence, so it is very rhythmic, regulated sort of space where the heart's energetic field is connecting to the space, and it's influencing our absolutely everything that is happening in our bodies, to regulate everything, to balance energetic field as well. So
it's interesting. It makes me think of a few things. I didn't fully answer the question of how do we measure
yeah,
emotions.
you didn't, but
Yeah, I mean, can we measure emotions in the brain? We can measure the emotional aspect of the brain. No, the brain aspect of emotions, the brain aspect of emotions,
yeah.
with certain experimental designs and neuroimaging tools like the EEG that was explaining earlier, the electrodes, and you can basically say, look, I'm measuring your brain activity here during this period where you're not
Mm,
uh, having this emotional stimulus, and now I'm gonna play for this second part of the experiment. I'm gonna play you a musical aspect or something that's considered emotional.
mhm.
I mean, musical is a bit more ethical, maybe, but you could scare the person. You can do whatever you want, something that elicits emotions. But it's it's gonna be hard, I think, to do. Music is great for that. I think
Yes.
films are used a lot for in this research, images, all sorts,
Mhm.
and yeah, that and basically we compare the moment of no emotions, which is still a bit
It doesn't exist.
controversial. Yeah, but it's a way of comparing something that's definitely emotional to something that is a bit more random
Well, I feel
from
like
a
that's whatever
external
it gets
perspective.
triggered in your heart sends the message to your mind, because the heart is responsible for production of the hormones, which are then influencing the how your brain works, right? So with all the neurodivergent and typical comparisons, this is where we measure it, right? The function of the brain works differently. So it's definitely what you're saying.
Yeah, it's
Uh, but
I
I'm
mean,
just like
it's
diverging
yeah,
from the.
it's an interesting thing. Like whether I think the nervous system has a strong. I mean, I'm a neuroscientist, so I think I have a strong bias towards the nervous system.
Yeah.
Now, whether it is the muscles of the heart that is sending, stimulating the neurons, I think there's an aspect to that. But there's also probably a spinal cord influence that
Hmm.
is the reflexive aspect, and there's also a
Hmm.
brainstem aspect, which is the
Hmm.
autonomic nervous system, which is that
Hmm.
reflexive aspect as well, and
Hmm.
is important in stress and calmness. But there's got to be other aspects to the nervous to the body than the nervous system.
Yeah, let's not go deeper because I'm gonna go into the instinct and intuition, which is gut feeling. So, and it's all
No, but I
connected.
want to touch on that as well. There's some interesting ways of measuring I'll be very short here, but in the
Hmm.
how to measure the body aspect of emotions. There has been some very interesting studies where they've this more how you say accepted scientifically way because it's been published in Nature, which is a very powerful, very popular, and
Yes, I know the
yeah,
magazine. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, very respected scientific magazine
Yes.
journal.
Yes.
There's some very interesting research where they've asked participants but to rate their emotions and the very loads of different emotions. Like there's a big map, and what they've done is they've just put a illustration of a body and say, oh, where do you feel the emotion strongest? So here's a very simple way of measuring, but they've created heat maps of different emotions where, oh, you have to look at it. I don't know
Anger.
if
Yes,
you've seen it.
I
It's
know
popular.
that. I know that
Yeah,
graph. I know that thing because I'm also from the compassionate inquiry perspective, from the therapeutic approach. I kind of know more or less. We all know where which emotion sits in which place in our body the most. Where the anger is usually in your body, when the sadness and sorrow and happiness is in your body, and when the deep grief is in your body, or fear, right? uh
mm,
yeah, so it's like
yes,
a heat map as well. It's kind of presented in a way of a heat map, right, in the body,
exactly.
the cold
So
aspects and the you know
yes,
reds and yellows. Okay.
yes, exactly. No, and the last theory I wanted to mention is the biophoton emission theory,
Yes,
which
please.
which um, which looks at how they measure how light comes out in different parts of the body,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's an interesting thing to put together all of these
Hmm.
theories, heat map of the body and biophoton emissions and nervous system based emotion theories,
Yes, and
and
the biophotons, that is now they combining and scientific from the sciences. They looking at it from the smallest particles, and how much energy they generate. I can't remember what it's called. This it's not a particle anymore. It's something. It's quantum
quantum.
something. Yes, but it's they all looking at how they move and how much energy they generate, and how quick they move. If you can actually translate the amount of energy, this tiny, smaller than the piece of sand, kind of represents in size, and how much energy this can generate is unbelievable. So
Yes, I
yeah,
think
and
it
as we
sounds.
say in,
Yeah.
wisdom teachings, the miracles are in the smallest things, not in the
Ah,
big things. They are in the smallest things.
interesting.
Yeah. The last theory, if we are around theories and all the universe aspects of theories, the frequency of the universe. Again, you've got this funny clip. You're so funny. Some of your clips are just hilarious. Um, Joseph Fuller, Transformation. Can you speak
Yes.
about that a little bit?
Joseph Fourier.
There you
So yeah, I
go.
did a video where I had a sort of
You
old quote.
impersonated
Yes,
Joseph Fuller.
I impersonate. I forgot he's from the 17th or 18th century
Yes, you
mathematician.
did well. Like, that
Thank
could
you.
be your second job, acting.
Impersonating, yeah, acting.
Acting.
Thank you. Yeah, so there was this Joseph Fourier is a very important mathematician for science. His most significant contribution is this
Hmm.
Fourier transform,
Hmm.
which is a mathematical tool that is used everywhere
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
is it's actually probably one of the sources of understanding frequencies. I'm not sure how frequencies were understood before him.
Hmm.
There must have been some sort of understanding,
Hmm.
but he basically has a way of I mean, there was an understanding of frequencies before him. I'm pretty sure, but he put together the fact that any signal, this is any signal, a signal. How can you define a signal? Formally is um, let me just get it up. Yeah, conveying information or instructions. It's a very vague word, actually. Uh, it
It
comes
is. When
from
I was listening to you on that recording, I have to listen three times because first you speak fast. Secondly, there's so much information packed into this short clip. I was like, wait a minute, what? What? Wait, what?
it's true. It's true.
Words.
There's a lot. Yes, it's but in essence, a signal is some sort of message with information,
Yeah, it's like a
and
data, and then it's
yeah,
kind of presented in a very specific way. But when I was looking at the circle, I'm going to try to include that at least some pictures here so people understand what I'm talking about because it's
okay,
just. But when that circle was, speeding and going slower and faster, it creates mandalas and creates a
okay,
different type of mandalas, which actually resonate with the certain levels of vibrations, and
exactly.
you know that each chakras got a different type of mandala also that is
Mm,
resonating with specific vibration of that chakra. So when I was looking at that graph, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a different mandalas showing up depending on how quick or how fast the what's this called, the whatever line is moving
the
and
circle,
drawing
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So no, that's I love that you're mentioning this because the reason I wanted to make this video is because this mathematical tool is actually something that anyone who speaks of frequency would, if they understood this, could find so much more inspiration than just
Hmm.
speaking spiritually of frequencies
Hmm.
or even yeah of, in
But as you
audio.
said, but I think you said that in the clip that even Socrates already mentioned it. So it's already put it into the geometric sort of concept of frequency and how we kind of measure the frequency and vibration in the past, way before we arrived with the mathematical sort of present, times mathematical explanation of how the frequency and vibration works. It was already sort of shown on the graphs and drawings of Socrates. So that's quite fascinating that we kind of reinventing ourselves, but maybe in slightly different, ways.
Improving. I mean, yeah. I'm not sure if Socrates was maybe Plato or Pythagoras probably makes sense.
Pythagoras
Yeah,
was
yeah,
good
Pythagoras. Yeah.
mathematician. Yeah, Socrates was
Yes,
more of a
he was a
philosopher.
philosopher. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's an interesting. Uh, Plato wrote most of his stuff. But anyway, to focus on the frequency aspect of the universe and Joseph Fourier. So Fourier is a mathematician who developed this mathematical tool to represent this circle, which basically says that any message. any signal can be decomposed into uh, all the simple um, circular patterns
Mm-hmm.
that it's made of. So,
Mm-hmm.
in essence, sinusoidal patterns, sine waves is a maybe quite known way, which is a sort of just simple wave.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that, look, if you look at any signal, you can decompose it actually by trying to identify at which speed um, and how many of these sine waves compose that signal. So a
Mm-hmm.
signal might be made of a bit of this, a bit of this, and a bit of this.
Mm-hmm.
That could be. And the way to figure it out is that you try out all the possible combinations of waves, um, and see to match it to see to what extent. Oh, does this one match with the message? Oh no, it doesn't really. So that let's not put a strong coefficient to that, and so it's not relevant. And eventually, you find one that does match, and you're like, oh, this it is present in the message, and we give it a strong coefficient. And then you can have a frequency distribution of that message saying, look, there's a bit of low frequency, a bit of this frequency, and a bit of that frequency. A good example is in music or sound, where this is used all the time, spectrums. And this frequency spectrum in music is very important, because if you take just a song that has a bass and a song that has a voice, let's say, well, you can identify that the bass has lower frequencies and it's more towards the lower end, and the voice is more towards the higher end of frequencies on the spectrum. So that's one usage of the Fourier transformation. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
Thank you.
And if you want just to touch on that circle aspect, this basically you get that wave by spinning in a circle, and
That's
how many
right.
times you spin on the circle determines the wave.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and actually,
I'm still going to put the graph on for people to understand what we were
I'd
talking
love to
about.
hear more of what you think about it. You mentioned the
No,
mandala.
I feel because I listen, but I also look at things how you because you were talking about dismantling it and actually looking at the aspects of something and looking at the how does that repeats like the what's the and then looking at it as a big picture, how beautifully this resonates with the rhythms of the nature. I mean, my mind when I'm listening to this stuff, it goes so many different ways, because from one hand you're looking at this from the mathematics sort of very clearly logical way of measuring things, and then from the other hand there is this bigger picture for this, which shows how this beautifully immerse into very clever universal concepts of how things work in the universe, right?
Definitely, definitely. I think that's the beauty of those maths is
Mhm.
that it's has so many applications.
Yes.
Um, yeah,
Okay. Last question. Can you speak a little bit about, and thank you for sharing that with me, about your diabetes 1? Because you're
sure.
the lucky one to have it, and you're also a clever man, knowing how to navigate that, because it's quite tricky sort of symptoms that you have to manage on a regular basis. And
Yeah,
if you can share with us how you manage that, and give maybe people who's got similar um, potential struggle in life, that gives them adds a little bit more spiciness to their lives. How do you deal with that?
Right. So I can say a bit about my experience with type 1 diabetes and say how it inspires me. I can say that. So, for instance, I'm very lucky to be in England and have NHS. I have to say that first, because with the NHS, I have access to these glucose sensors, which I have it on this arm right here. I have it on my phone. I know what's my level. So right now, I'm very happy that it is at a good level.
It's
And
green. It's a green light there.
green, yes. And I injected myself before eating. Inject insulin to be precise, and insulin is what
No
I.
psychedelics today.
Yeah, so I inject that because that's what my body is lacking at the moment because of an inflammatory reason. It's an autoimmune disease, and um, so yeah, my pancreas is being attacked by my immune system for some reason. Who knows why? And so I have to deal with my diet. That's what that has. So it's been 3 years I've had it. My diet has changed a lot, and my lifestyle has changed a lot in terms of exercise. And I've become very interested in going to the gym often, which I'm not sure to what extent it's quite useful, but when you're doing that kind of exercise, it actually increases your inflammation because you're trying to build muscle. You have to destroy the muscle fibers, right?
Right.
But that creates a bit of
Maybe
um,
yoga.
yeah, but also it builds strength, which is very important. Also, yeah, probably
Yeah,
yoga builds strength, but
it's
that's
tricky. Yeah.
this resistance training is one of the
Yeah.
best ways I think to do that. I had a good friend who has also a gut problem, autoimmune disease, and he became a PT, daily bodybuilder, and he was very interested in strength training, saying that that's training not only your one of the best ways to train your nervous system because it trains your mind body connection basically and your strength, and you get to use more of your muscles when you're lifting weights. But also you do an increasing inflammation. So that's the aspect of exercise, diet. I've ketogenic diets mainly, but I try to reduce the fats, try not to have too much fats. And recently I started supplements that are anti-inflammatory. Got a new stack of supplements: omega 3, vitamin D. I got this. I forgot the name. CQ10 or something that's good for the mitochondria. Um, a few now. If you have a few that I take, which
There's a lot of stuff out there now. That's quite
yeah,
interesting. In terms of your diet, like what do you eat? Well, you cannot eat some stuff. Like I guess it's the sweet stuff that is also causing the issue.
yeah. I the way I describe it is I'm allergic to sugar. I'm allergic to carbohydrates. I'm not necessarily allergic, but I'm
Your
very sensitive.
intolerance.
In a way, yeah, exactly. So I avoid any pasta, bread, grain-based stuff. It's been like that for years now. And starchy foods like potatoes, I avoid that. Rice. Um, yeah, I've become more of a yes, more protein-based, like meats and animal-based products. And yeah, I try at some point. Maybe I'll do some long fasting 1 day or two. I've done that in the past, but calorie counting. And what's inspired me actually is that I've become very curious about how my how diabetes works and ways of improving it. And I didn't like alcohol before, but now I definitely don't drink alcohol. Maybe once in a while, a whiskey. That's the best that I would take because I saw on diabetes.co.uk whiskey is okay. So I was like, okay, fine. That's the only one I take.
Well,
And
funny enough, I've been to dietitian, and the only alcohol, although I don't drink alcohol at all, almost. Sometimes I have a good glass of wine with my dinner, but once in a blue moon. But
yeah, it's the same.
whiskey
Yeah.
and gin actually are the one that I can still drink if I want,
Oh, okay.
and cook with. Which is like quite
Ah,
interesting. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So yeah. Um, so yeah, for me that's important.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have to wrap it up. So I'll just one more question. We didn't have enough time to speak about your Manuk music and your brand and where the name come from, but I will include that in the chat.
Yeah.
Unless you want to
Okay.
quickly explain your music projects, the happy side of being a musician, creating a beautiful sounds.
Sure. And I could play a bit of guitar if you want in like five
Yes,
minutes,
yes,
maybe.
I've got the request for the song that brings the heart to its coherence, please.
Okay. Uh,
Well,
I
I like
forgot
that
about
song
that.
that
Yeah.
song that you played a few days ago
Yeah.
on social media.
Obviously.
So
Yeah.
I absolutely love that song. So you can play that.
Fantastic.
It
Yeah.
brings my heart to sort of kind of coherence, but it's
Fantastic. Yeah, I can give you a bit of snippets of a few songs that I play. And Manu is a, um, I call it the musical protein. It's because the story behind it is that in a biology class when I was in high school, I wasn't paying attention. I was very tired, you know. But at the high school, we had long hours, and I wasn't sleeping well enough. And certain days it was low, especially in biology class. And I know we were looking at a certain sequence. I didn't know at the time that it was a sequence of amino acids. I googled that a few years ago to try and figure out what was I looking at. But in the middle of that sequence, amino acids are what makes up proteins,
Mhm.
and it said in the middle Manucap. I was like, oh, I was looking for an artist name. That's a cool name. So I just took that, and that's the musical protein,
That's a
Manucap.
musical protein.
Yeah,
How lucky that protein it is. Maybe when you invent something, you can put it, your name on it, musical protein on it.
fair
Well,
enough.
it's a musical protein. It's your brand. That's you. There you go.
I
And you
like the
also
idea.
have podcasts, which I didn't manage to touch upon, but you also got your own podcast and um, your other branch where you kind of platform where people can sign up and actually learn quite more and more on a deeper level on what you're doing in the terms of your neuroscience studies and music therapy.
Yes, I have the podcast, and that's on the same YouTube channel that has a music science. It's basically a music science YouTube channel, and on the podcast called Health, Vengeance, and Harmonies, which explores science and social dynamics in essence, basically, but with a focus on arts and music, and there, everything that's relating to that. Um, And so I was very lucky to have you, Gozia, a few weeks ago. That's a recent episode where we talk about sound healing
That's
and
over a
Reiki.
month now, man. It's been ages.
As well as out last week, so and it's
Mm.
doing pretty well, to be honest. People are quite interested in Reiki, I think. So that's
Yeah.
or sound healing. I think it's attracted a lot of people. Yeah, so that's the podcast.
Yes,
Yeah,
and I will mention all of it in in my description on the page, the description side of the page. Anyway, but now I would like you to play us something cool,
cool.
something maybe from your Bossa Nova dell'Amore album.
Yes, I will do. So uh, let me know if it's all good. Um, think it's a nice
It's
view.
a
Well, apart from,
yeah, a bit bright from the window.
is that better?
Yeah,
Slightly better.
yeah, slightly better.
I'm
Yes,
in my mother's piano room right now.
yes,
And it's a very nice one with Beethoven and Mozart and the
yes,
piano here.
and beautiful artwork on the wall.
Yes, and that's a friend of my dad's who did that art. So it's
Yes, we didn't mention that you. I mean, I mentioned you coming from a musical family, but we didn't mention your mom is a pianist, your dad is a music teacher, so
yes,
very strong background to not to go on the music field.
yes. When I was 18, I really liked making music. I was doing music for a few years already on my computer mainly, and I went against my mom's advice of not becoming a musician. So okay. Quiero amigos, amor y tiempo, arte de mi fantasía en realidad. Quiero amigos, amor y tiempo, arte de mi fantasía en realidad. Joli mot, tu fais penser à l'amour, à au-delà de ce jour, et tout ce qui est joli en ce moment. Mon amour, tu me fais penser à toi, à au-delà de moi, et tout ce qui est joli en ce moment. Quiero amigos, amor y tiempo, arte de mi fantasía en realidad. Quiero amigos, amor y tiempo, arte de mi fantasía en realidad. La 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 la. La 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 la.
Bravo,
That's a little
bravissimo!
snippet. Grazie. It was a short rendition of one of the songs of Bossa Nova dell'Amore, which is called Life Equation.
Love
Life
equation.
Equation, and there are three important things to the life equation: friendship, time alone, and love. I think those are the three ones.
Could be love. What
Yes.
else? What else you've got for
The other
us?
one is Chronic Dreamer, which I'll give you,
I love that.
which is the one you heard before. I've been working hard, cause I'm a chronic dreamer, but I understand that I go too far. A list of conquests is my shield on guard. I stand like a soldier and my skull is a weapons holder. I hate war, but I'm a cheater with cups to feed, a chimp with tribal deeds, a hawk with praise to sweep, a wolf with a pack in need, a human with knowledge to read, a young boy who's naive. My time is precious and I give the effort for it to give. I've been working hard, cause I'm a chronic dreamer. Sacrifice of pains and hands that differ creative lands. I understand that I go too far. A list of conquests is my shield on guard. 'Tis the call from my ancestors. I will fight with heart on this Cosaca. Thorns that will cannot teach. I can only make you think.
Think.
Cannot teach.
Teach.
I can
I can
only
only
make you
make you
think.
think.
That's what Socrates told us by text. A dreamer whose deed was to differ from the rest.
Yay!
Thank you very much.
That was
I
beautiful.
appreciate
Thank you
you.
so much.
I
I love that
appreciate you
song.
for wanting to listen and knowing the lyrics. Because
Oh, yes,
thank you
I've
so
listened
much.
to it a few times and I was like, that's a good, catchy words there. And really wise also.
Thank you very much.
Very, very, very much applied to our state of minds and, how we see how we perceive the world. So nice. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored
Muchas
for your.
gracias. Obrigado. Um, what else?
1 second. Dziękuję.
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 Well done. Almost. Almost there.
Almost. Almost.
Dziękuję bardzo. Merci
Dziękuję.
beaucoup. There you go. I found the words.
Grazie mille.
What else? Did
Obrigado.
we
Yeah.
miss any language? Did we
A
miss
few, I
anything?
think. We've missed a few. um, Dankeschön.
Dankeschön. In Romania, mulțumesc. In what
Multimask.
else? Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. I don't know any.
Woo! That was
There's
great.
100
Thank
few
you.
other ways. There must be at least. Well, fantastic.